The Texas land market prospects for 2013, that's a good question, and the answer is complicated, probably, more than people would think. Generally, statewide, the prospects are probably fairly good for increasing prices, but to appreciate what's going on, you have to kind of dig beneath the surface, so to speak, and look at the different kinds of land and the different kinds of buyers that are abroad in those various markets. For the past few years, irrigated cropland and cropland in general has been in great demand, and it continues to be so at this point in time. The properties that most people think about when they think about rural Texas, in other words, what people think of as recreational properties or ranch properties, not so much the past few years since the financial meltdown. What has generally happened is in those markets, the level of activity has really been muted. There have been fewer sales and many fewer acres changing hands than there had been in the past. The focus of the market the past year or so has been on the smaller properties, and the larger properties have been kind of sitting there. People are willing, they've got them listed, they're willing to sell them, but they're not willing to accept what people are willing to pay. And a lot of that's been a reflection of the uncertainty in our economy. Having said that, there is a lot of that land that would have changed hands that's still sitting there today. And my guess is going forward that at some point some of those acres are going to start changing hands, and I would not be surprised if that doesn't pick up somewhat in 2013. So we'd see an increasing level of activity in terms of trades, and the next question is at what price? And what's happened that has surprised a lot of people is that we did not get the price collapse that we had in the 80s, largely because there were in the 80s a lot of people that had borrowed a lot of money to buy land and were not able to make the payments. Well, that's not been the case this time around, and so the owners who are would-be sellers have not been forced into the market, so to speak, and have been unwilling to accept the low offers that they've been getting. And the price then has held up well, even though the level of activity is not. So my guess is in 2013 we're liable to see a pickup in the level of activity in those markets, and I'm talking about properties with price tags of $1.5 million to $2 million up, and a continued appetite for the smaller properties, the 70 or 80 acre tract that is just basically a weekend getaway kind of thing. Those sorts of properties have moved fairly well in the past few years, and I think they'll continue to do so. Prices will probably be on an upward trajectory this year. We see improvement in employment. The general economy is promising to have a fairly decent year this year. So I believe that ranch land, recreational type segment of the market is likely to improve significantly this year. The cropland, the farmland, I'm not quite so sure about in terms of increases, simply because there have been just dramatic increases in prices over the past few years. Up in the Panhandle and South Plains area of Texas, we've seen prices go up 20% 2 years ago and 25% last year. So that's a 45% run up in price per acre in that region of the state. Am I going to predict that it's going to go down? No, I don't think it's going down. I just don't think it can't continue to go up at the rate that it's been going up for the past couple of years. So you may see a little bit of pullback in that market. But having said that, there was no evidence of it at the end of the year in 2012, but there still was a tremendous appetite for cropland, especially good quality irrigated cropland. So in a nutshell, things look fairly decent for most of the land markets around the state. And the one question that keeps arising with respect to that is, when are we going to be back to seeing an active market for transitional properties, those lands that are going from rural open space to developed subdivisions, housing subdivisions, or commercial properties. That market's been pretty moribund, pretty dead for the last 3 years or so. And one of the problems there is for developers to be able to have access to credit, and there still is a problem with that. So even though there's pressure now in the housing markets, housing construction is picking up a bit, and there are in some areas shortages of good developed lots in good neighborhoods. That there will be some upward pressure on that, but we're going to have to overcome that financing problem for there to be a lot of activity there.